Welcome to the WRAL Daily Download. I'm your host, Amanda Lamb. If you've been waiting a century to see a legendary century plant in full bloom, well, you don't have to wait any longer. We have one right here in the WRAL Azalea Garden. It's just begun blooming. In today's deep dive conversation with WRAL's hidden history reporter, Heather Leah, we're talking about this century plant. What is it? Where did it come from? And how can you see it in person or online? Heather, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
So tell us about this plant. I mean, everyone in the newsroom, everyone in the station, on social media, people are talking about this, including you. Mm-hmm. You're very excited about it. Tell us what it is and what makes it so exciting for people to see this.
Well, so first of all, century plants have a really interesting legend, and the legend is that the plant blooms only once in 100 years, and then it dies. So the agave americana already looks interesting, and that's its scientific name. It looks like something out of Jurassic Park. It's got this very prehistoric-looking appearance, and it's so huge. Even before it blooms, these plants get up to 5, 6, 7 feet tall. So you'll walk up and it kind of looks like an agave or an aloe, but it's taller than a person walking by. And then that accompanying the legend, right, that it only blooms once in 100 years and then dies, they're considered a very rare plant. So you kind of rarely see them bloom because they don't bloom very often and then they pass away. When they do bloom, they are very impressive. The stalk grows over the course of several weeks, and it can get up to 30 feet tall, sometimes even taller. There have been instances of greenhouses having to cut holes in their roof because once it started to bloom, it just kept growing and growing, and it was going to bust through the rooftop.
Where do these come from? I mean, you said you knew about it when you came here 3 years ago, and you were excited to see if it was going to bloom. I mean, where did these come from, and how did you find out that we had one?
So they are not native to North Carolina, but they do seem to do well in the weather here. They come from Mexico, South and Central America, sometimes in Texas and Arizona, more those desert climates, but they do well here in North Carolina. I had done a story about one in a Raleigh neighborhood a couple of years ago, and it drew crowds. I mean, this neighborhood had lines of cars of people coming to see this plant because it had gotten so tall it kind of looked like a tree.
I'm sure everyone appreciated you doing the story.
I'm sure they were thrilled.
Created the traffic jam.
Oh, yes. But people were so excited to see it. And at that time, so I've been here about 3 years, I noticed that we had a century plant in our own garden, and I had no idea how old it was. So according to legend, they bloom every 100 years, but it's more like every 10 to 30 years, which is still a very long time. And then they do die right afterwards.
How long did they stay in bloom?
They stay in bloom anywhere from maybe 4 weeks to 8 weeks, depending on the plant.
Okay, so when did this one start? So how long do we have? How long is the window?
So like I said, I've been watching this plant and hoping it would bloom, but I had no idea it could be 30 more years. So it might bloom after I retire for all I knew. And then Saturday I was working and I was looking out a window on a top floor and I looked down at the plant and it had like a mohawk coming out the top of it.
And you said, it's happening.
I was like, oh my gosh, I think it's blooming. But I wasn't 100% sure. I mean, it looked different. So I put a picture of it on WRAL's Facebook page, and we had hundreds and hundreds of comments of people agreeing that it looked like it was in bloom. And then sure enough, when I came in Tuesday, the stalk was growing. There's no question it's in bloom. And I mean, the whole station is so excited. People are running out there. Though some people didn't even know what it was. They'd walked past it a million times and didn't know.
And I certainly didn't, so I'm going to have to go check it out. Well, we will be back after the break with more from WRAL's Heather Leah about the timeline for full bloom and also a couple legends about these fascinating plants. Welcome back to the WRAL Daily Download. I'm talking with WRAL's Heather Leah about the legends behind the century plant. So Obviously, a plant like this, there's got to be some stories.
Yeah.
Tell me some of those. I know there's a romantic legend, at least one.
Yes, and I have to think that we have a producer here who told us about these legends and let us know about these legends and folklore that come from Mexico. And so we looked into those a little bit more. So these plants, first of all, there are records of them during the Aztec civilization, and that the Aztec people would use the plants to make fermented drinks, sometimes alcoholic drinks, and specifically a drink called pulque. And that beverage they would make from the heart of the plant. This is according to a plant specialist who talked with us about this that we put in the story. And they would use it for sometimes medicinal or spiritual purposes. So it has a lot of traditional and cultural uses. And then in more recent times, 1960s, 1970s, there was a song released. Seems like it was maybe part of a movie. And the song was called La Ley del Monte. And the lyrics, the original lyrics are in Spanish, but they translate to, I recorded your name on the stalk of an aloe, joined to mine interlaced, like a proof before the law of the mountain that there we were in love. I'm getting chills just reading it. This is a song that kind of inspired this newer tradition of carving your names into the aloe's leaves, or not aloe, into the blades of the agave plant, the century plant. And if you carve your names or your initials in there with your loved one, it's like proof of your love, or evidence of your undying love, or possibly giving you luck in your relationship. And it comes from this beautiful love song.
So is it pretty when it blooms?
It is. So right now, like I said, when I saw it on Saturday, the stalk had maybe grown to about 2 feet tall. And again, that's on top of the 5 foot tall plant. So it's about 7 feet. Within a couple more days, it had grown maybe 4 feet, the stalk. That stalk is growing rapidly. We have a picture on WRAL.com. We have someone standing beside it who's 6'2", and it's just towering over him.
Sounds like Jack and the Beanstalk.
It's going to be like that. We think it could get up to 35 feet tall, and it will have yellow flowers. It'll look just otherworldly. And I think it'll probably get at least as tall, if not a little taller, than the balcony that we have out there beside it. So you'll be able to stand on the balcony and look out at it.
Yeah, I was going to say, so obviously the WRAL Gardens are pretty extensive. Where is it if people come to the property and they want to see it? Yeah,
so it's closer to the building. So it's not out in the depth of the garden, though that's a beautiful area too. This is going to be closer to the building. If you've ever seen, we have a giant rabbit statue, not the ones on the bicycles, but there's one hiding in the garden towards the building and the patio.
And it's closer to that.
Yeah, it's closer to the patio. Right now it's roped off, so you'll be able to see the ropes around it. If you park and just walk down the stairs, you'll probably see it starting to, you'll see this tall plant. And the longer you wait, the more obvious it'll be, because it'll be the tallest thing out there.
And how much time do we have?
So from what we have guesstimated, right, we think it'll probably be in full bloom in June, but it'll die soon after. So there's kind of a window there where you'll want to come.
Sooner rather than later.
I would come sooner rather than later. It's growing pretty rapidly right now. It's still pretty impressive right now, but it's going to get more impressive next week and the next week. I would, again, this is a guesstimation, maybe in the next 2 to 3 weeks, make sure that you're out here. But the good news is we are streaming. We have a live cam on it. So you can see it from home and see if it looks like you want to come look at it, right? You can look at our cam, and if it's starting to look 10, 20 feet tall,
get out here.
And if it's starting to wilt, you better hurry.
Finally, Heather, it always occurs to me when we do stories together, what are the things that catch people's attention in this very busy world with so much information coming at us online, on social media? What do you think it is about this story that's just really captured people's attention?
I mean, I think it's a combination of the rarity as well as the legend, right? This legend that it lives 100 years and then blooms once and then dies. It's not completely accurate, but it's a beautiful thought. And still, it is very rare. I mean, they tend to live 25 to 30 years, bloom once and then die. And they only bloom over the course of maybe a month. So you don't get to see this very often.
It's like luck. It's like a comet, seeing a comet, right?
It's like, yes, shooting star, come make a wish on it, you know?
Absolutely. Well, Heather, thank you so much for sharing another fascinating story with us. I'm sure a lot of people are going to either head out here or check that stream online. And thank you for listening to the WRAL Daily Download and making us part of your morning routine. If you like what you're hearing, please rate us on Apple Podcasts or on whatever podcast app you use. Another great way to get WRAL News is the Morning Briefing newsletter. It's a daily email waiting in your inbox every morning with Triangle news events and headlines to get you ready for the day. Sign up at WRAL.com/newsletter.